Hi, everyone. Happy Thursday. Thanks for joining us here on Office Hours Live. I am so excited for our guest today. We've got Tejal Wagadia here with us today, and I just love her. I love her no-nonsense approach to recruiting, and really it speaks to the mission that she is on, which is to really demystify the hiring process and make it more transparent. So in addition to being a senior technical recruiter, Tejal is also a LinkedIn top voice for 2020, and she knows her stuff. She's always she fills something like 100 jobs plus per year. She knows what she's talking about, and yeah, I think you're in for a real treat tonight. And for those of you tuning in for the first time, I'm Kamara Toffolo, resume writer, job search strategist, and also a LinkedIn top voice. And welcome to Office Hours. So without further ado, I'm going to welcome Tejal to the stream, to the broadcast. Hello, Tejal. How are you?
Hi. So I have a confession to make. I do not know how to say your name.
My name. Okay. Kamara Toffolo.
Kamara Toffolo. Because I remember your tweet about like how people were mispronouncing Kamala Harris's name. And like how people were calling you Kamala Harris.
Yeah.
So I was like, I've never asked her like how, and I have a unique name because people are like Tejal, like all of that. So like Kamara.
Yeah, you got it. You got it. You got it. And I will admit too that before our live, I went over to your LinkedIn profile and listened to your name pronunciation several times so I would get it right. And that's the great thing about that name pronunciation tool for folks like us, right? It's like, yeah, it's very handy. It's very handy. So, well, thank you so much for joining us tonight. I know that we have a jam-packed hour, so we got to get through a lot of questions. People are super excited to hear from you. And speaking to the audience, just want to check in and see where everybody's tuning in from. Office Hours boasts a global audience, so really excited to see where people are tuning in from, and we'll hear from you guys shortly. And also make sure to ask your questions in the chat and the comments, either on YouTube or LinkedIn, as we go through tonight's episode. So Tejal, I want to ask you, like, real talk, what does a day in the life look like for you as a recruiter?
Oh man, a lot of lists. I was joking about this with somebody. Can you see me?
Yep.
Okay, perfect. I was joking about this with a fellow recruiter today, and I was like, I'm a list person. Like my brain is so weird. Like I don't like monotony, but I love looking at lists. Like what do I need to get done in a day? And I have this little like calendar thing that I can see the entire week in like the calendar. So I just like move it from one place to another. So mostly though, besides like my terrible organizing skills, it's a lot of talking to people, a lot of sourcing, a lot of putting out hiring fires, not like firing people, but like fires that come up in hiring and recruiting. A lot of like being sometimes a therapist, because candidates tell me their entire life story. I'm like, I appreciate that. I really don't need to know. So it's like sourcing, scheduling, talking to managers, talking to candidates, making offers, sending out rejection emails, and calling candidates to let them know they didn't make it.
So lots of to-dos, lots of boxes to check. And so obviously resume reviewing is a big part of your job, reading resumes. And so are recruiters, like, again, real talk, are recruiters reading every resume that comes in for a job application?
So here's the thing. Yes and no. So when I say yes and no, what it means is that if I got 20 applicants in the first 30 days or whatever, like take any time frame, right? Typically it's like 1 to 2 weeks. If I got 30 applicants in 1 to 2 weeks, and we have in those 30 applicants the right candidate that has applied, and we're just moving them right along, they're in the final stages, we've made the offer. Anybody that comes after them, they're probably not gonna be looked at. But if there's nobody in the first batch of candidates that are coming through that is the right fit, and we're still, going slowly and in a snail-like process and like taking our sweet little time, then yes. I personally still look at every resume just to make sure. I'm like, can I talk to them in the future? Do I have something else? Because just because one position is filled doesn't mean I don't have another position that's coming down the pike that I don't know about. So typically I talk to my leaders. I'm like, tell me what next quarter looks like. What positions do we have coming down? If you can tell me that, I can start sourcing right now, even before it's approved, so we can be a little bit ahead of the game.
That's great to know, because I think there's just so much wondering about like, okay, I'm sending my resume in, and then what? So it sounds like, if, and this isn't obviously transparent to the job seeker or visible to the job seeker, but if they don't make it by the time that you have that ideal candidate, then maybe they're not getting their resume read. So, but that's reasonable. So speaking of that, is there a kind of a sweet spot in terms of time frame that someone should submit an application? Like, is there a time where it's too late after a job's been posted for a while?
I feel like a lot of my questions are going to say yes and no.
That's fine.
So yeah, yes and no.
Okay.
Typically, every job that I post is either reposted every week, depending on where we're at, or every month, depending on what platform it is. If you see a position that's been posted for 6 to 8 weeks, the likelihood is that they've already got someone. If you see the same job posted over and over again, that means, like, say you saw it posted 2 weeks ago and they reposted it. That means that they haven't found the right person. Or they had found the right person the first time around. The candidate fell through. The candidate couldn't, didn't accept the offer. They didn't like them at the final stage. They realized that that's not the right candidate, and now they have to start the search all over again. And that's why I personally look at every single resume that comes through, because this happens, right? Candidates reject offers, and honestly, I love when candidates know what their worth is and negotiate with me. I'm like, yes, let's do this. Like, yes, let's talk about this. Why do you think you need that money? I'm like, I will go to bat for you. Like, let's talk about why. And we've had, because part of my current company's structure is staffing, we've had candidates that our clients wanted to make offers to already have 3 other offers. And they're like, yeah. And engineering, it happens, right? So it happens more in like tech and engineering than most other places. But I'm like, I talked to the manager, I'm like, there's nothing we can do. They have another better offer. So
yeah, that's incredible. Well, that's really good to know, and people are popping into the chat saying it's quite helpful to know about the time frame. So thank you for sharing that. And I just also wanted to touch base with the audience and where everyone's tuning in from. So we've got Sebastian from Mexico, Karen from Mississauga, admin group from Memphis, Wendy from Andover, Arjun from Albuquerque, Caroline from Montreal. Wow, so many. Hello, Carrie. Carrie's joining us as well. Carrie Twig. Hello, thanks for joining us. Greetings from Jamaica from Patrice. Sweta's joining us. Hello, Sweta. Hello, Nola. Hello, Aaron. So many of our friends joining us tonight.
Wow.
So yeah, thank you everybody for tuning in. So that is fantastic. So you're reading every resume. You're one of the good ones. So when you are reading resumes, what are you looking for in a resume?
So here's the thing that I do differently than most other recruiters. By no means am I perfect, right? But I always have the job description either memorized or I have it pulled up. So I'm looking at my notes that I took during my intake meeting with the hiring manager, the job description, and your resume. So all of these things are in front of me. I'm looking at, do you meet the bare minimum skills and qualifications? So hypothetically, say I have a project manager position and somebody applies and they have no project management, even tangentially related project management experience. I can't move them forward. But then I look at, like, what other skills do they have? Do I have a job for them? Or do I know another recruiter that might have a job for them? So typically that's what recruiters are looking for. Do you have the bare minimum that the job is requiring? Now for the job seekers, what you need to do, and I feel like I've been like on this soapbox for a while. The first 3 to 5 responsibilities and the first 3 to 5 skills and qualifications, that's what you need to focus on. Because if something's important on a list, it's not going to be at the bottom of the list. It's going to be at the top of the list, and that's where you need to focus your energy on.
So you're meaning that the most important stuff or the most required skills and strengths would be in the top portion of the job posting.
Yep.
Got it. And so likewise, I presume it's important for us to have also the most important stuff in the top portion of our resume.
Yep. Yeah. And again, I'm a weird person. I love reading. So I read every single resume line by line, and it takes me forever. And I'm a pretty average to fast reader. But most people don't. Most people, it takes them 30 seconds to a minute. It's not a 6-second rule. It's a 30 seconds to a minute, because it tip on average, if you have the skill set, then we look at it, right? But the 6-second comes in when like a person is applying to a CTO or a VP level position when they're an entry level or junior candidate. We know that's clearly not going to be a match, because we're looking for an executive versus what you have is an entry level candidate.
Oh, so here I thought the 6-second rule really applied to every job, every scenario. But so it sounds like the 6-second rule really applies to those which are obviously not a fit and obviously not qualified. Is that right?
Yep, exactly. If somebody is even remotely qualified. So I know Amy has spoken about this a lot. Our job is one of the metrics that we are held accountable to is time to fill. My job, I want to make sure that my manager and the executives are thinking that I'm doing my job the best ability. I want to fill that job as quickly with the right candidate as possible. We're not sitting here maniacally laughing. I can't even do a maniacal laugh. We're not sitting here maniacally laughing, rejecting candidates, because it makes no sense. It just makes our job harder. And then the manager's like, well, I have this position open. It's been 6 weeks. Can we get an agency? Like this, that, and the other. Like, why aren't we seeing any good candidates? So like I push people through if they are like 70% match or above.
Okay, good to know. Okay, that's really enlightening. And we have some questions coming in. So Wendy's wondering, so since it sounds like you've got the job posting up, you've got your notes up from the intake meeting with the hiring manager, you've got the resume up. How and when does LinkedIn come into play? Are you taking a look at that at the same time too?
Yeah, I do look at people's LinkedIn. If you have it listed on I love it when people list on their resume, their LinkedIn URL, and it's hyperlinked. Pro tip, hyperlink it, because in a lot of parts I'm lazy. So I like clicking a button and it pops up. I have seen that people link it to the wrong profile though. So make sure it's yours. My cat wants to say hi to.
I love that. That's perfect.
So yes, I do look at people's LinkedIn profile, not specifically for any reason, but I just want to make sure that you're a real person, and especially in the tech field, there are a lot of fake candidates. When we talk about people on visas, people from other countries trying to get on visas, there's so many fake candidates that are put out there that I always request for a LinkedIn profile. And there have been times when legit candidates have said, I don't have a LinkedIn profile. I've never needed one. Do I need one? And I'm like, it's a good idea to make sure that you tell people that you're legit. But if they don't have it, it's not particularly like a make or break thing.
Got it. So these fake applicants that are coming through, who's winning there? Like, what's the point in these fake applications?
So that's typically coming through agencies. Third-party staffing agencies will put it through fake applicants to get the bid. And then they will put somebody else in that looks similar enough to fake it. Or they'll send somebody else for the interview, for a phone interview that's technical enough, and the person that's doing the job doesn't know anything about the job, and they're just getting money off of it.
Wow. That's incredible. I had no idea. That really complicates the process. Wow. Yeah. So, oh my gosh. So it's like part like resume reviewing, part like detective work to make sure that you're not falling for these scams. Oh, that's terrible. Wow. Yeah. Wow.
And that typically happens in the agency world, not so in the corporate world. Like I can typically tell whether somebody is a real candidate or not. I want to say 90% of the time, the positions I hire for, we don't get those third-party agency applications to us. We get that when we are talking about staffing.
Got it. Okay, that makes sense. Okay, got it. But still, why is that happening? All right, so let's talk a bit about the ATS. Everybody's favorite topic, the ATS, the applicant tracking system. So in your role and in recruiting in general, how does the ATS really come into play?
Oh man, I love when people are like, the AI is doing your job for you. I'm like, please tell me which AI so I can go talk to this person so they can do my job for me and make my life easier. I would love to sit here and collect a paycheck and have a robot do all the work. It does not happen. What an ATS for me has always been in the multiple jobs I've had and the multiple applicant tracking systems I've looked through, demos and whatnot, is that it's a database. It's a database with a user interface, right? And just like for those technical people that are amongst us, they know that just like any other database, you can, with a UI, you can make it do certain things. But at the end of the day, once you put in your resume into the database, it stays there. So in my world, what happens is somebody applies, they put in their resume, they answer a few questions, and I go in, I see which new applicants came through, I go through every resume and make sure that they're there. And if they're not there, I reject. I hit a button that says reject. And send them an email that says thanks but no thanks. In another sense, it also can schedule. Some applicant tracking system can do the scheduling. They can do the scheduling of interviews, scorecards based on those interviews, certain other things. Now, the current applicant tracking system I'm using is also enabling us to do one-way interview, which I laughed at because not going to do that. I am staunchly against one-way interviews, but
for good reason. Yep.
yeah, and I love video interviews. I love talking to people, especially in pandemic. We're not getting the human connection, so I love talking to people through video interviews. I have a problem with one-way video interviews.
Right.
So that's what it is. An applicant tracking system is no different, I would say, than an eBay. So when you go on eBay and you have an account and you're looking for, say, Doc Martens, right? You get all of these Doc Martens listing. That's what we see on our end. All of these people that have applied either to this job or to other jobs in the past, that we can see their listing or their resume in our case.
Got it. So, that's really interesting to know how it appears on your side, because it's certainly not something that's visible to a job seeker. And it's also really good to know that when a rejection is happening, you're clicking the button, right? So that clears up a lot, because I think, as you know, as we all know, a lot of job seekers believe that the applicant tracking system is rejecting them, that it's some sentient being and it has the ability to make a rejection, but we know that's not the case.
So I love when people say that. They're like, oh, it's a smart, intelligent piece of software. I'm like, we haven't figured out how to do people-less driving yet. Tesla is still not there. Like, do you really think people are putting that much money into hiring? Like, really? Right. Are you sure?
Right.
A lot of people's foot and pull.
There's bigger fish to fry in the AI space.
Yeah, exactly. So that's always my like rebuttal. And they're like, well, I have seen that AI is doing this, this, and this. I'm like, what you're talking, and like, because somebody came up to me and was like, oh, like this AI software is going to help you find better candidates. I'm like, how? They're like, well, they're gonna match your job description to people's resume. I'm like, so keyword matching. You're talking about keyword matching.
Right.
It's not AI, it's keyword matching. We've had this technology for years now, guys. Come on. Like, sell your snake oil to somebody else.
Yeah, right. Oh gosh. Well, speaking of keyword matching, Nancy is asking, transitioning into HR, I finished my master's, my background's in financial compliance and military leadership. And it applies a lot to HR. And she's tailoring her resume for each job with keywords, but not having any luck. What do you think might be amiss there?
I think one of the things I've seen with military folks transitioning into corporate world is that you're still doing the military speak. Yeah. So if you're still talking about not keywords, acronyms that are military focused, that only a military person would know, that I wouldn't know, that might be a miss. And also, it's interesting. You're saying you're pillaring your resume for each job and keywords. What we need to do is figure out how your financial compliance and military leadership translate into HR. So if military leadership is talking about training and retention, and if you've done all of those things and the job is requiring that, that's when we talk about keywords and making sure the resume matches the job description. And because a lot of normies, I like to call us normies that are not in military, a lot of normies don't know what it means, what things in the military mean, right? I sometimes have to ask some of the veterans that I know, I'm like, what does this mean? Like, how does this translate into project management? How does this translate into HR? How does it, like, there's so many new, like, military is such a big beast. They're so nuanced and so many structures and so many layers. You want to make sure that like I said this earlier to somebody, I'm like, your resume is about communication, and communication is not about you, it's about the other person.
That's such a great point. It's about the other person. It's about your audience, right? And I'm glad you brought up that point about the challenges of military transition to private sector. I was reviewing a resume last week, and it was military to private sector transition. And I remember this term in there, and I was like, what does this mean? Something like ordnance echelon. And I'm like, I don't know what that means. I know this is English, but I don't know what this means at all. So yeah, there was a lot of military speak in there, and maybe that'll help you, Nancy, with making sure that you're aligning to your audience and communicating, as you said, to the person who you need to communicate to. So that's Nancy, awesome.
Sorry. And if Nancy, if you want to send me your resume on LinkedIn, I'm happy to do a free review for you.
That's so generous. Wow. That's so generous. Thank you for that. That's fantastic. Nancy, hope you heard that. All right. So we've talked about the 6-second rule. We've talked about the ATS. Let's talk about the hidden job market. So you had a poll on LinkedIn recently.
It was amazing. It was so amazing. So like when I posted the poll, like I saw so many people voting for the 0 to 30 that had no recruiting experience. So I like put it on the top. P.S. Don't vote on this poll unless you are this, this, and this. Out of the 177 people that voted, only 30 were recruiters, talent acquisitions, or hiring managers that had the hiring banner. I'm like, oh my God, guys, come on. And like literally I went through, because when you do a poll, you can see everybody. I went through counting 1, 2, 3, 4, and somebody's like, can you help me with this? I'm like, yes. And then like I would write it down, like literally, where's my sticky note? I have a sticky note that said how many people actually voted that had the recruiter thing. So the hidden job market, does it exist? Yes, it does. Is it as big as people make it to be? No, it isn't. So the person said that 70 or 80% of the jobs are never posted online. I was like, BS. That's BS. Like, come on, guys. Like, we just don't throw out numbers without any proof. So I went and did some digging. It took me about 2 hours, but it was posted by somebody that was a blog writer, a resume writer, and a blog writer that said, I believe 70% of the jobs are never posted online. Nothing else. It said, I believe. And that person has been quoted, and this statistic has been thrown out over and over again. Here's where the hidden job market comes in. It is for executive level positions. It is for confidential searches. When somebody's not performing and we need to find somebody to backfill their position before we ever, let them go. It is for internal promotion. So say somebody left, right, retired, left, whatever, and we see that somebody else has the skills and qualification that's under them, we move them up. Or it's for internal people only. So they want to first see, do they have the talent internally to fill this position rather than going externally and bringing them up to culture and training and all of that stuff. That's where the hidden job market exists. Agency recruiters can tell you, oh, we find out about these positions that internal recruiters never know about. I'm like, yeah, confidential searches that recruiters don't know about because we're not supposed to know about, because it might be our position, it might be somebody else's position, yada, yada, yada. So that's the hidden job market. I want to say maybe it's like 10-20% of the job market. Networking is a thing. I won't lie, like last couple of jobs I've gotten through networking, and I've like technically never applied, but applied. But even those jobs that I got through networking were posted online, because as a recruiter, I want to see all of my options. I can only source so many hours a day. I can only network so many hours a day. My employees, the employees that work for the same company I do, only know so many people. There are people out there that are outside of our network. So why wouldn't I cast a wide net and be like, okay, who's interested? And those are the people realistically I want to talk to, because they are interested in my company. That makes my job a little bit easier. Not that saying that I don't poach, I don't search online, and I don't, reach out to candidates through LinkedIn Recruiter and other job boards and whatnot. But when somebody's already, like, it's like dating, right? Like, I'm interested in you. Don't you want to talk to me? Like, why do you want to go hunt other people? Like, I'm here. Hello. That's essentially what it is.
I love that analogy, because it's like, why would you just pursue someone who's not interested when you have all these other people who are?
Exactly. Fish in the pond that you're currently in.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. That totally makes sense. And so with that poll that you were running, of the 33 who were actually recruiters or whomever, I think the number was they came back and said 90% of their jobs are posted online. Was that right? Or am I? Yeah.
So yeah, let me pull the poll up really quickly. So so the math I did was that if we take the 33 people that voted for the 0 to 30% and subtract the other 170 something people that voted, that brings our number down to like about 500 something. And I did the math. Like I have like my TI 84 because I'm brown. And like I did the math, and I'm like, what percentage is this? And it's 52% of people that voted for the 90% plus, and all of them were talent acquisition people. If you take the 33 and divide that by the 500 something, it's 6 or 8% of people that voted for 0 to 30. There are some people that voted for 30 to 60, 60 to 90, and those people I saw that were mainly on the agency side. Agencies don't always post all of their jobs, but internal recruiters do.
Got it. So in short, most jobs are getting posted online, right?
Yes.
Wow. Yeah. So that totally blows the whole hidden job market concept out of the water. Like as being a big gnarly thing, right?
Yeah, people want to, here's the thing, people want to say these things because they're fear-mongering things that will help you, that will compel you to buy their product. Oh, 70% of jobs are never posted online. You know what you need to do? Buy this product from me that will teach you how to network so you can find the job. You are how many ever hundreds of thousands of dollars less in your pocket, and they made money and basically scammed you. I'm sorry that they're doing that to job seekers. And like, that's why I keep calling them out. I'm like, no, that's not how it works. That just is not how it works.
Thank you for clearing that up. I think that's so important for job seekers to understand. We've had a lot of questions come in, so we'll just pop right over to them. This one's a big one, so it's gonna like come up into our faces. So I'll take it off once we read it through. Yep, here we go. So yeah, so I think, sorry.
Yeah. So this is like the one-way interview.
Right.
Yeah. So a lot of companies, I forget the person's name, a lot of companies are Sebastian. So a few companies are doing this. They are asking employees, future employees, to record themselves, either video or audio, and send them over. Here's the thing. Whether I talk to you over the phone, over via video, or I watch your recording, I still have to take time out of my day to do that. Any company, I tell this to job seekers all the time. I'm like, any company that's doing this to you is probably going to treat you terribly once you get hired. Because this is like the whining and dining period. This is the time that they should be like, oh my God, let me talk to you. Let me show you how great our company is. Let me, like, it's rainbows and sunshine with a little bit of rain, right? That's what it's supposed to be. Like, I can't, again, dating analogy. If they're showing red flags to you right now, what are they going to look like when you actually get into a relationship with? If that person that you're texting is not responding to your text every single time and you have to chase them, that's probably not the relationship you want to be in. Same thing. If you have to chase somebody to get an answer, if you have to put in a one-way video interview to do this, like, oh my God, like, imagine how they're treating their current employees. Like, you're just a number to them. I'm sorry, but you're just a number to them. And like, companies have come at me and they're like, well, this is through AI and it eliminates bias and reduces bias. I'm like, how?
Yeah.
Number one question I asked when I did that thing and like I made the post and people came at me, I'm like, how? Nobody could give me an answer. They're like, well, we did a survey and 86% of our clients. I'm like, no, I don't want a private research. If my academic training has taught me anything, like, show me a scientific study that has been peer reviewed, that has been IRB certified, and then we'll talk. Then I'll believe you. Then maybe I'll believe your BS about like, we are eliminating bias. Yeah, you know, Kamara and I, we're people of color. We're women of color. If we submit this, they have that much more ammunition against us to reject us. Think about the economics that some people speak in America, right? You can get rejected for that. You can get rejected for how you sit, how you do your hair, without ever having spoken to anybody at the organization. It adds more bias. And until somebody gives me a scientific academic study, I'm not believing it.
Good. So, you told them. That was so good.
Sebastian, don't do this to yourself. Don't do this to you. This is a red flag. Run from this company. There are so many good companies out there that will treat you right.
Right. And what I thought was very telling, I think they stated this publicly. I saw in an article, Amazon, so what I've heard with this asynchronous or one-way video interviewing is it's great for high volume roles that get a lot of applications. okay, whatever. But Amazon, one of the highest volume hirers, is that a word? One of the highest volume companies
Employers.
doesn't use it.
Yeah.
Doesn't use it.
Exactly.
Yeah, employers doesn't use it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Somebody said that to me. I was talking to someone I know, and they were like, "Oh yeah, the company I consult with, they're doing like the asynchronous interview." I'm like, "You're opening yourself up to lawsuits." And they're like, "Well, we hire predominantly people of color." I'm like, "It's still a lawsuit. I don't care who you hire predominantly. There's somebody out there that's gonna say, I didn't get hired because of X, Y, and Z. I submitted a video interview. They looked at me. They didn't like what I said, or didn't like the way I looked, or the way my name spelled, and rejected me." You're opening yourself up for lawsuit.
Absolutely, absolutely. So while we're talking about bias, how do recruiters actively try and mitigate or eliminate, if possible, not possible, bias? How do you try and move away from it?
So when I'm talking to my hiring managers, and when we're talking about interviewing, I'm like, this is the training I've done. I'm like, anytime they talk about something other than the job requirements, their personal life, what they do over the weekend, or any of that stuff, when that happens, and I've trained a lot of like newbie interviewers, and I'm like, you just say thank you for that information and step right along. This is the line. You're stepping over it. You're not acknowledging whatsoever. You're not having a conversation about the fact that they have 2 kids. You're not having a conversation about the fact that they like or don't like the current president. You're not having a conversation about what's the other one? Religion, whether they go to church or temple or mosque or whatever it is. We're not having this conversation. What I need from you when you are evaluating this candidate, have they done the job? Can they do the job again? Why are we rejecting them? Not being a culture fit is not a good answer. Because unless we can define our culture, we're not talking about culture fit.
Such a good point. So, so when, let's say they come back with culture fit being not there, do recruiters typically go back and challenge that?
I do. Some of the best recruiters I know do. I've always said this to the hiring manager. I'm like, why are we rejecting them? They're not a good culture fit. What does that mean? Well, they don't fit in our team. What does that mean? Like, rarely I've seen employers managers and leadership be able to define their culture really well. And even then, it's such a nuanced word, because culture to me means culture something completely different to you. So when I'm talking to candidates and they're like, oh, what's the culture like? I'm like, define culture. And then they like start pinpointing what they think culture is. Work-life balance. Are the managers nice? Do you get enough PTO? I'm like, okay, those things are part of the culture. And I'm glad you are defining that, because then I can answer the question based on your definition of culture, not my definition of culture.
Oh, great point.
Yeah, because it's leadership, right? It comes down from leadership. How does leadership treat employees, and how are they treating their people, and all of that stuff. So I always ask people, I'm like, even managers, I'm like, define culture. They're not a good culture fit. Oh, define culture. And actually, my current company has done a great job defining our culture, which is rare, which is very rare on like what the culture is. I'm like, okay, what is our culture? They're like, when we're looking for a new employee, we're looking for 3 things. Are they humble? Are they hungry? And are they intelligent? Those are the 3 things that fit in our culture. I'm like, okay, we can work with that. Are they a team player? Are they arrogant, or are they egotistical, or can they do the best for the team, not for themselves? Are they going to be doing the job, or are they just steady Eddie that's just here to collect a paycheck? And we don't want that. And are they intelligent? They're talking about, are they a problem solver? Can they see beyond what they're currently doing and how it impacts the rest of the team? So,
oh, that's great. Good for them for doing that. Is that something that you push them on? Or had they already defined it before you arrived?
They had already defined it. I was so happy. I was like, when I asked, I'm like, how do you define culture? The CEO was like, this is how we define culture, and this is the things we look for in our colleagues. I'm like, perfect. That helps me. Then I can say, okay, so you did not show us problem solving skills. You came across to us as somebody that isn't going to do more than is required. And that's fine. There's a company out there that can hire you, but that's not our company right now. And I'm honest about any company I work for that I'm like, listen, it's not sunshines and rainbows every single day. We have our bad days, right? And that's what you want to ask. When you are talking to companies, you want to ask, what is wrong in your current company? And if they say nothing, you need to run. Because that is, my dear, is a red flag.
No doubt. It's either they're lying, most likely, or they have no self-awareness at all, both of which are a problem.
Yep. I always ask, anytime I interview, anytime, I'm like, it's not all sunshines and rainbows over here. There are bad days that we have. Like, I'll be honest. And like, I'm like, here are the things that we can improve upon. And we know, we're self-aware enough that we know that we need to improve upon, and we're doing it. But there's still things that we don't do correctly right now.
Right. Excellent. Such great tips and so many questions for us to touch on, actually. So Sweta's asking, we're hopping back over to the ATS, everybody's favorite topic. Do you rate candidates on the ATS, or does it automatically do it?
So a lot of ATS have the capability of ranking candidates automatically. I typically don't rank candidates. I think it's such a, what's the word I'm looking for? Such a diminishing thing to do for their skills.
Right.
So personally, I don't do that, but I know ATS that do rank based on the keywords on the resume. Even then, the recruiters that I've spoken to that have used that, that have that ATS as a function and have that function in that ATS, don't use it. They'll still go through and look at other resumes to make sure that they're not missing anything. And I'm I'm such a weird person, because I'm always like, did I miss somebody? Who did I miss? I need to reread this resume just to make sure I didn't miss anybody. Did I read that correctly? Let me go back and read it. And I'm not saying that like that makes me better than anybody else or anything like that, but I'm just like, I have such a terrible anxiety about making sure that I'm not rejecting the wrong candidate, that I like read the resume 2 or 3 times.
That's so good to know. That's very reassuring. So Joel's asking, how do recruiters view a resume of an applicant who's trying to bridge into a new industry and has no direct experience, but many achievements in the previous industry?
Yeah, that's a great question, Joel. At the end of the day, what matters to the recruiter is whether you can do the job or not, and how does it translate. If you're a career changer, say you're going from being a teacher to now being a developer, right? That's a drastic career change. Being a teacher is very different than being a developer. What the recruiter is going to look for is, what have you done to study how to be a developer? Like, what knowledge, education, not formal education, you can learn it from YouTube. There are so many free classes. You can go to lynda.com. There are so many online resources available. And have you done some projects that match the development side? Now, your achievements on the teacher side is going to matter about communication. It's going to matter about some, like, achievements are good because that shows us that you are a high-performing employee. So that's a good thing. You should always list your achievements because everybody, honestly, if anybody tells you they don't want to hire a high-performing individual, I don't know what to tell them, because they're lying. Everybody wants to hire a high-performing individual. That's just like the nature. We want the best, right? Even though we don't always pay the best, we want the best. So that's what I would say. That's how I look at it. I don't immediately discard it. No recruiter immediately discards it, unless it's like the classic example. You're an entry-level salesperson applying to a CTO job.
You're giving me nothing to work with here, right? So
I can't do this. Like,
yeah,
we can't do this. Sorry. So it like, we look at your achievements in the previous industries. We just need to see, can you bridge the gap for us? Because we don't know. We're not clairvoyants. We cannot read your mind on what you meant when you're writing your resume. We need to know how your achievements in your current career is going to translate into what our job is requiring. And if you can do that very well, wonderful. I have no problem pushing people forward.
Fantastic. That's great to hear. So make it make sense in the new world that you're moving into, new career direction. Awesome. I already know the answer to this one because we've talked about it in the past. Do you read recommendations on LinkedIn?
Yeah. Absolutely, I do.
How do you interpret them?
So I read them at face value. I found this trick very early on content creation, is that everything I read online, on LinkedIn, recommendation, reference letters, and everything, it is in Samuel L. Jackson's voice. And there are a few cuss words that go in there. But it's like a very calm, soothing Samuel L. Jackson's voice. So I do read them, and I look at that person's, like, I look at the first 2 or 3 recommendations on LinkedIn, and I look at like where they worked, how they worked with you, were they a client, were they a colleague, were they a customer, and depending on the type of position, I'll give different weight to different recommendations.
That's great. That's great to hear. I'm a big fan of recommendations on LinkedIn because, why not get someone else to say good things about you?
Right. I'm all for recommendations. The people are like, can you write me a recommendation? I'm like, I will do that. I will write you a novel. Like, just give me a few days.
I love that. I love that. So back to ATSs. ATSs are just such a hot topic. I think they freak job seekers out. So Caroline's asking about maybe not ZipRecruiter specifically, but ATSs in general. Are we expected to reword our achievements from the resume, or can we copy and paste into, I guess, online application forms?
Okay, so ZipRecruiter is not an ATS. ZipRecruiter is a job board. So it functions similarly to Indeed, and I used it. I will never use it again. Are we expected, not your achievements? I wouldn't say you're necessarily expected to reword your achievements. You can reword your duties, because like you want 2, maybe 3 achievements on each jobs, and like the rest, like 3 to 5, you want your duties, and that's when you take stuff from the job description and put it in their own words, put it into your resume. And I always say this because people have lied on their resume. If you've done that before, if it makes sense. If it doesn't make sense, do not lie, because they will find out.
That's a very good point. And actually that leads very well into Gabriella's question. And she's asking, what do you think of resumes that take text directly from the job description?
The tiny white font trick. The tiny white font trick.
Yes. Did you see that TikTok video? Did we talk about that TikTok video?
Yeah, I created that guy. I stitched that guy, whatever it is. And like he commented on my video too. It's a great thing. Do not do this. Please do not do the tiny white font trick. What is going to happen is the mythical ATS, and I put this in quote because it is not a thing, it's going to be read by a human, and we are going to see if you don't actually have the job description matched on your resume. We're going to say, oh, this person is not a fit, and we're going to reject you anyways, and you are going to get frustrated. Like, I did the tiny white font trick. Why didn't it work? Because it's not supposed to work, because it's not a thing. You should only reword things on your resume if you've done them from the job description, and do not listen to anybody that tells you about the tiny white font trick. They don't know what they're talking about.
It's that TikTok video was so cringeworthy to me. Like, he was like, oh, if you put it in a PDF, no one can see it's there. You can't copy and paste. Yeah, you can copy and paste text. It doesn't matter that it's in white.
We can and PDF can be converted into Word. PDFs can be edited.
There was so much wrong with that TikTok. Anyway, Jayesh is asking, would not knowing corporate speak for technical terms be a major hurdle to landing a job? I seem to know the ideas, but not the corporate kind of speak.
So I actually do think that there's value in learning the business speak for technical things. And a lot of companies these days, especially in the technology world, are looking for not just your technical genius that can, code really well. They're also looking for somebody that can translate that technical genius into corporate speak. Because when I'm talking to candidates and they say fancy stuff to me, I text one of my really good friends. I'm like, what does this mean? And right, I'm texting him as we are talking, I'm like, what does this mean, right? But there is value because as a technical person, especially if you're trying to move up the corporate ladder, you're going to need to figure out how to communicate what you're doing in a very high level, very layman's term to the business. Because if they don't understand what you're doing, you're going to see a lot of frustration. So what I would recommend is if you know a technical term for something, Google it and just see what other people are saying. Just see what other people are saying. Because people talk about .NET Core all the time. I'm like, and I asked my friend, I'm like, what is .NET Core? And they're like, oh, this is just the newest version of .NET. It's kind of open. They explained it to me. And I was like, okay, that makes sense. And I'm like, and then, I just Googled when it was released. And somebody told me they had 20 years of experience in .NET Core. It was released a few years ago.
Oh, no. Oh, no. Oh, boy.
So, yeah, I think there's definite value. I would also recommend getting a mentor on the business side, somebody that's on your level, not intelligently, but on your level that understands the technical term that can help you bridge that gap between technical and corporate speak.
Great idea. That is a great idea. We're heading back over to the ATS. Julie's asking, why does one company take the same ATS and program it one way and another company take the same ATS and program it a different way and parse differently?
Because we live in America and it's a free market. I'm being facetious, but it's true, right? For a company like Amazon, they have so much leeway to make you jump through hurdles, even though they typically don't. They have so much leeway to make you jump through hurdles and to input your information and input your graduation date and input all of the job history and all of that stuff, right? We've all applied through Taleo. Taleo is the worst. For a smaller company, candidate experience matters. We don't want you to have to go through 50 different steps in order to apply. We want you to click 2 buttons, maybe 5, and submit your resume. That's where it differs. How much information are they requesting on the application side versus how much information they're requesting? Yeah, how much information are they requesting on the application size? And it depends on the size of the company or who is on the other side configuring this. Because if they want the sun and the moon and the stars and answer all of these questions, a small company will still do that. Whereas if you apply to Amazon, which I did about 9 months ago, super simple. It took me less than 15 clicks, I think. So yeah.
Wow.
So sorry, Julie, for being facetious, but yeah, it's really based on their needs. Do they need, especially if it's in a government or OFCC compliance, they have to ask certain things. So there's also that difference, corporate versus government versus educational versus private. All of these things matter.
Great. Okay, thanks for that clarification. And we sort of touched on this before, but this individual's asking if this was a question that was already asked, which we already touched on before, but is there a too late time for applying for a job?
Yes. I would say anything that's posted for longer than 6 weeks, I would still apply because things fall through. I would still apply, especially if it's a simple application process. but I wouldn't put too much burden into that job application. The other thing that people don't realize is that application alone is not always going to get you the job. You can network. So if you find the job, and LinkedIn has this great feature where they show you who posted that position, especially if it was posted on LinkedIn, because I can show people that I posted a position and that they can contact me directly. And people have contacted me directly for a position I've posted. You can say, hey, I know this position was posted 6 weeks ago. Are you still looking for this person, or are you in the final stages?
Great idea.
And it takes a simple thing. It's like sends a message. They might respond and say, oh yeah, we're in the final stages, but send me your resume. If something falls through, I'll call you. And I've done that. Like I have had a candidate submit their resume and I'm like, we just made an offer. If it falls through or if we open up a position again, I'll let you know. And I did talk to them when the position opened up again. So
fantastic. And Wendy is asking, this is a really great question because this is on a lot of job seekers' minds right now. What are your thoughts on taking a career sabbatical, stepping out of the workforce, and volunteering? Does that help beef up your resume?
Absolutely helps beefing up your resume. I always say, I'm like, if you are taking a career sabbatical and you've volunteered in the industry that you want to go into or in the industry you're currently in, don't put it as volunteer experience. Put it as work experience. You're working for free. You're still working. You're still getting the skills. You're still doing the thing. You're just not getting paid for it. And if you are just completely taking career sabbatical to raise children, whether, what doesn't matter what your gender, sex, identity is, if you're doing this, just address it on your resume. The worst thing you can do is leave a gap. So just say 2017 to 2019, a personal time off. That's it. You're just addressing that you took personal time off. That way we know that there was something happening. Either you were taking care of a sick relative, you went backpacking to Bali for 2 years and were trying to find yourself, you took care of your child, whatever it may be. It doesn't matter to us as long as we know that you were not unemployed at that point, even though you were. You don't want the other person to make the assumptions because you know what they say about assuming.
Right. So if the job seeker is quite transparent and says they were raising a family at that time or raising kids at that time, is that okay to be that transparent?
I would stay away from it because bias is a thing. And people are like, there are still managers out there and people in power, in positions of power, that think that having children and having to need to take care of children is taking you away from your job and you're not going to perform well. So yeah, I would just not say anything about it, because if you don't tell me, I don't need to know. If you tell me, now I know, and my bias might come in.
Now it's in my mind. Yeah.
Yep. I try to keep my bias in check. We've interviewed pregnant women and I'm like, we can't ask her.
Right.
You can't ask them. Well, they're going to need a maternity leave. I'm like, are they the best qualified candidate? They're like, yeah. I'm like, okay, let's move forward now.
Right. Well, that's great. That's great that you're keeping your hiring managers in check. It's so important. I'm just realizing that we're basically at the top of the hour, and I know you've got to go because you've got a very important appointment. So we have a minute and a half left, and I want to ask you, where can people best follow you?
LinkedIn.
Okay.
Yes. My best follow is LinkedIn, or you can also find me on Instagram. I'm starting to post a lot more content on Instagram as well, as far as job seekers. If you're on TikTok, I also do stupid stuff on TikTok. I made a post about how, this was funny because I said, I did this back and forth where I had a hiring manager on the other side. I didn't. And I'm like, yeah, I know you told me to keep them warm. They're not a burrito, Mark.
Love it. Wait, that was on TikTok?
That was on TikTok, yeah.
I gotta check that out.
So I'm trying to get more active on other social media, but the best place that I post consistently is on LinkedIn.
Fantastic. That's great to know. And I have linked to all of your social media accounts in the description on YouTube. And of course, Tejal is also tagged in the live on LinkedIn as well. So you can find her there. All right. Well, thank you so much for all of your time, Tejal. I really, really appreciate it. Unfortunately, we couldn't get to all of the questions. There's so many. People are really excited and learning a lot from you, want to learn even more. So thank you so much for your time, and all the best to you. And
of course. No, I was just saying thank you so much. You guys have been wonderful. Kamara.
Yeah, Kamara. Yeah.
like Kamara. Thank you so much for having me. This has been such a pleasure. You guys, thank you. It's been wonderful.
Thank you so much. And thank you everybody for joining us. Sorry, we have to rush off, but all the best to everyone, and take care. We'll see you again next time. Bye.
Bye everyone.